Dear colleagues, we continue our working day, and I invite the first deputy head of the special OSCE SMM mission to Ukraine, Mr. Alexander Hook.
Good afternoon, dear friends. The people of Donbass have yet had again another difficult week. Violence continues. On Monday night this week, our monitors recorded 105 undetermined explosions west and northwest of their position in Donetsk city center. Now, many of these explosions happened in the Kubievsky district in the town. Just 2 days before, our monitors actually went to that district and saw damage to a residential building. They were also told by residents in the district that armed men were using the roofs of their buildings to fire weapons. This, we have found, is common practice. Let me remind the sites that using densely populated residential areas as firing positions, or even locating military hardware in such areas, is banned. On Sunday night, an SMM unmanned aerial vehicle actually spotted a revealing exchange of fire in so-called DPR-controlled Mineralne, 10 kilometers northeast of Donetsk. This incident constitutes 2 violations of the Minsk agreement, both because of the presence of such heavy weapons within the withdrawal lines and the use of the weapons. First, the UAV saw 2 self-propelled howitzers about 100 meters from a residential area. Then suddenly 2 incoming explosions occurred. Please. Minutes later, the crew of these howitzers responded. They fired 4 rounds in a northwestern direction in the general area of government-controlled Avdiivka, please. Now, you know, Avdiivka, along with neighboring so-called DPR-controlled Yasinovata, has in fact been bearing the brunt of the violence this week. On Tuesday, for example, our monitors recorded in Avdiivka 227 explosions from 152 millimeter artillery, 120 millimeter and 82 millimeter mortar and automatic grenade launcher, mostly at locations 2 to 10 kilometers southeast of their positions. On the same day, the SMM monitors in Jasenovato, on the other side, heard 113 undetermined explosions and 46 single shots of small arms fire 2 to 10 kilometers west and southwest of their position. The Jasenovato Avdiivka flashpoint has been with us for some time now. It is clear, and this is a clear example of how once relatively quiet areas turn violent when the sites position themselves closer to another. Now, dear friend, I fear a similar dynamic is at play in an area about 30 kilometers southwest of Donetsk, and there is a map now for you to show this. There we go. In so-called DPR-controlled Jasne, our monitors saw 11 impacts caused by automatic grenade launcher rounds and damage to neighboring houses in the area. Since the sites moved closer also in this area, we have seen clear signs of escalation. It is, of course, the local population who pay the price. 8,000 people in this area, on both sides of the contact line, are without potable water since 15th of April. Near government-controlled Berezove, repair work required to fix electricity line downed by shelling is impossible because the area is heavily mined. The fighting also threatens to further restrict local people's freedom of movement. Because of mines, already the main road leading to the Mariupol-Donetsk highway has been cut off for the people of nearby so-called DPR-controlled Dokuchayevsk. The only remaining credible route for these people runs through Jasne. Unless the sides disengage and stop this madness, the people of Dokuchayevsk will soon be effectively isolated. Long detours are not a viable option there. We know it is not viable because we have seen this scenario play out elsewhere. On Saturday, I was in so-called DPR-controlled Komiternove, just northeast of Mariupol. With checkpoint controls, with sometimes day-long or even overnight delays, and minefields cutting these people off from the rest of Ukraine, and in particularly from Mariupol, their lives in Komiternovo have been turned upside down. Dear friends, I have met with these people there. These are hard-working people who do not want anything for free. They have no choice, however, because their livelihoods have been almost destroyed. One woman in Komiternove, her name is Luda, told us, and I quote, "We want to be given a chance to take care of ourselves, to work, to move, and to live normal lives." She explains and explained that the closure of the direct crossing route to Mariupol had turned into what used to be a 20-minute drive into a day-long journey. One older woman told us how families have been torn apart because of the restrictions. Her adult children moved to and had to move to Mariupol because they could no longer commute to work. Her grandchildren also had left because of their schools are in Mariupol. There we also spoke to two young brothers, aged 6 and 8. They were two of the very few children we saw in the village. They told us that they live with their grandmother as their parents were in Mariupol. Now the situation for many people in the Luhansk region is actually worse. For the entire region, there is only one crossing point at Stanica Luhanska bridge. And even there, people can only cross on foot. And they are required to apply for crossing permits in advance. And they are restricted in what they can carry across. The sites have promised to open a new crossing route in the Soloty area in western Luhansk. But as you know, this has not happened. Instead, the sites have been engaging in fierce fighting in the vicinity of the bridge, making its closure almost inevitable. We have seen this pattern before in Zaitsevo, in Marinka, Olenivka, and even in Stanica Luhanska for the 3 weeks in April, where intense violence was followed by the closure of the crossing routes. On Monday night, our monitors at the forward patrol base in Stanica Luhanska heard 336 explosions from mortar, anti-aircraft gun, automatic grenade launcher, and 73mm caliber gunfire. Most of this violence occurs at night, so thankfully we had no reports of civilian casualties there. The violence, however, represents an ever-present threat to their livelihoods, their way of life, and indeed to their lives. This threat must be removed. Given that most of the violence is happening in places where the sides have moved closer to one another, the solution seems to be obvious. The sides must disengage. The forces must be separated. Separating the sites, particularly in key flashpoint areas such as Avdiivka and Yasinovata, would considerably reduce the risk of violent flare-ups there. For the people living along and wishing to cross the contact line, this would bring immediate and tangible benefits. Opening the direct road to Mariupol would, for example, allow children in Komiternovo to stay at home with their parents and go to school. Opening the road would allow people in Komiternovo to sell their farm produce in Mariupol. It would also allow them to be self-sustainable and truly independent. There is no freedom worth fighting, for that brings only dependency. In the longer term, the resulting sustainable ceasefire would also allow them to finally break the wider cycle of violence. We could at last look at the day when there is a complete cessation of violence. Let's be honest, this is not going to be easy. Many people have died and there is much bitterness and distrust. Let me be clear. Nobody expects one side or the other to unilaterally disengage. This is not a process whereby one side cedes territory to the other. It is instead a negotiated process. It requires discussion and agreement, and facilitation and oversight, particularly at the implementation stage. Through the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission, there are 57 states to support normalization. We are ready and able to work and plan out the technical and logistical details. Above all, we are here to help and rebuild the required trust. Trust between the sides is not there yet, but they must trust me and the OSCE SMM and the 57 participating states we represent when I say that all of this is possible. It is above all possible because it is impossible to imagine people like Lyuda in Komiternovo and hundreds of thousands of others like her having to endure this madness for much longer. Dear friends, it is time for those in leadership to lead. It is time they started to make decisions, sometimes hard ones, so that Lyuda and her friends and family can once again lead normal, peaceful lives. As usual, at the end of my presentation, I would like to inform you about the latest mission numbers. As of today, the mission has 700 monitors, of whom 589 are deployed in the east. In addition, there are 309 Ukrainian colleagues and 83 other international staff working for the SMM. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Dear colleagues, are there any questions or clarifications?
Dear friends, any questions?
After all the actions and the military actions in east of Ukraine, how we can name this situation? We can say that the Minsk agreement it's already fall, or it's just breaches?
Thank you. You ask an important question. The Minsk agreement, the Minsk platform, is the only platform at the moment available to try to find a solution to this conflict. The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission operates within its own mandate to support the Minsk process. It is always difficult to prove the absence of violence because of certain measures taken, and it is much easier to prove, of course, the existence of violence. The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission supports the process where issues of concern are discussed at the table rather than being fought out at the contact line in Komiternovo or in Avdiivka, Jasinovato, as just seen and demonstrated here today.
Second question. You said that both sides don't trust each other. How you can build the trust between each other and nobody can accept the other side?
First of all, any move that has to happen and will happen will only build trust if it's done in agreement and negotiated. Any unilateral move, even if good intended, will lead to further mistrust because the action was not foreseeable and not predictable for the other side, which will lead to counter-reactions that will further steer up violence. Now, building trust will not happen overnight, and this is and will be a long and complicated process. Once again, Minsk and the Minsk Agreement provides a platform where the sides have an opportunity to sit together and discuss these matters rather than letting guns talk on behalf of them.
Thank you. Next question.
Бережная Елена, head of the Institute of Legal Policy. Dear Mr. Hook, today is 2 years since the moment when in Lugansk, in center, the Ukrainian aircraft threw 2 cassette bombs and some people, 8 people were died. Our institute has been attracting attention to this. In your report from June 3rd, this fact was registered. You cooperate with law enforcement agencies. So now my question, what you have done during that last 2 years to inform the global community that Ukrainian troops threw that bombs and kill people. Also, Dunya Mijatovic printed in her report about some website with the lists of those people who should be punished, killed. This is about Mirotvorets website, and Mr. Shimanovich arrives whether you will do any steps related to Mirotvorets website.
Or questions. It is very important to understand that the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission is not an investigative platform. We are a civilian unarmed observer mission. We report what we see and what we hear. And what is triangulated and verified will be made public. And this information is accessible for anyone who has an interest in free languages on our website ever since we started this operation here in Ukraine. And that includes information relating to the incident in Luhansk that you have been referring to. With regard to the statement of the special representative of the OSCE on the freedom of media, we have been following these developments of that specific site very closely. But I'm not here to comment upon a commentary by the special representative for the freedom of the media of the OSCE. But we will continue to make it clear that an independent, transparent media interaction in this conflict is part of a possible solution to the conflict.
Дякую вам, пане Хук. Дякую, колеги. На цій ноті будемо завершувати. Thank you for coming. At this point, the press conference is finished.
Okay, thank you.